Go for that.
Seeing this channel grow has been such a thrill. I read all the comments and try to respond to each one. I love it. I try to be consistent and I push as much love and care into these videos as I can. And the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. But somehow, I just cannot read the algorithm lately. People seem to enjoy the content, but YouTube is just not too keen on suggesting my essays. So I got this idea. Since the algorithm won't cooperate, what if I take matters into my own hands? What if, only for this conference, I become the algorithm? Okay, let's have some fun with this. How would I become the algorithm? I need something tactile. I need something visual. First idea seemed from the start like a massive waste of time, but it was cool enough to pursue. I thought I'd pull a leaf from Iron Man's book and hack my own chest for this purpose. Not literally hack it. Here's what I was thinking. A mechanical iris on my chest that would reveal a QR code and maybe an NFC tag, which would funnel people into one of my videos at random. Since I didn't know anything about how I might design this, I had to break down everything. Regarding the exterior, I wanted to mount this on a t-shirt without ruining it. I wanted it to be comfortable to wear, look like a version of Iron Man's core or arc reactor as they call it, and I wanted some level of motion to allow some interaction with people on the show floor. That actually sounds surprisingly doable. The difficult bit is the guts of the thing. How do we make this work? I've always been fascinated by how cool the design of opening apertures or irises looks, but never attempted to create one myself. And after a few minutes of Googling, I remembered why. I had to simplify this a lot and somehow minimize the amount of mating surfaces. This ruled out those designs that have overlapping leaves. 2 more days and my brain finally realized that the motion system I needed didn't require any rotation of the iris blades at all, nor any fancy angles. It was just an illusion. I only needed some cleverly meshed shutters that would slide in their slots in unison via the rotation of the aperture. After looking at several existing models that attacked this very problem, I found a lot of inspiration from this guy. He figured out the right shape for the shutter, and look how cleverly he laid them out on the plate with little ears that snap off after printing. This is good design. Of course, the fun didn't stop here. I had to figure out a way to snap everything together and push through into an actual version 1. I had to cut some corners, forget about hiding the magnets or shying away from using glue. This was war. We didn't have time for perfection. And then, after a lot of arguments with CAD, I managed to produce something that gelled together. By this time, I even had a good name for it. The Arc Creator. Get it? Arc Reactor, but for content creators? Anyways, everything now meshed well, it assembled, and it stuck on my t-shirt. I could have called it a video there and just moved on, but the truth is, it didn't feel good at all. Opening and closing the iris was either too stiff or too loose to operate while on a t-shirt. I was never going to wear this in its current state in the real world. So I was left with a question. Should I keep on fine-tuning this or scrap the idea altogether? You'd think surely just fine-tuning it is the way, and you'd probably be right, but here I was, 6 days before the event, less than a week, with a doomed version 1 and a shaken faith that this was a good idea to begin with. So I gave up for a couple of days. And then it hit me. It all started with this becoming the algorithm idea. This thing on my chest would have no doubt driven some engagement, but was it an algorithm-worthy claim? What if I took this becoming the algorithm idea a step forwards? What if I serve people on the floor a video based on their actual preference? For that, I needed something else. Enter the Affinity Gauntlet version 1. With only 4 days to go, I had no time to spare, so I started sketching. In its most basic concept, this would be something to wear on my hand or on my arm. Based on a quick set of 3 specific questions, I could find the best match between your preferences and one of my video essays, and point towards it. Since I had already bought a bunch of NFC tags and magnets, I knew where to start with the dimensions. That, and measuring up my wrist and arm. I did some quick research on NFCs, and it turns out there are some specs around minimal viable distance between them, depending on the diameter of their antenna. It seemed too large of a distance for what I wanted, but when I factored in the off-axis angles I was working with, I thought I might just be able to pull this off. I was energized. It all seemed promising, like it might just actually work. I had a name, and the CAD modeling seemed really straightforward, at least in my head. If only our bodies conformed to a more regular form, huh? Ellipses, arcs, circles. It was tricky at the start, but it's amazing how lessons learned during previous projects compound on each other. Like for example, I managed to get the rough shape quickly by moving and offsetting faces, booleans, etc. It all came a lot quicker to me after I had to use them for my jackal rifle project not too long ago. While the rough shape emerged quickly, fine-tuning was not easy. First generation of iterations, I wanted to use magnets. Great idea, but the pull force was not strong enough, especially as I discovered just how much the shape of my arm changes as I twist and turn it. Second generation, I adjusted the measurements to make the cuff more comfortable to wear, and I swapped the magnets for the slide-in pins. Although this seemed like the way to go because it minimized the amount of pieces, the meshing didn't work at all. It wasn't just the tolerances, but also my arm. More precisely, my skin was painfully and consistently getting in the way. Third generation, I finally bit the bullet and tried to create separate clamps flush with the body of the cuff. First I thought of them as something to click in place, but then I realized sliding them on was easier and more intuitive. But how could I design this since my object was an irregular loft? It was a nightmare. Eventually I remembered it's actually permitted to ask for help, and someone offered it. Once that blocker was dealt with, I continued through the evening into the night with the missing piece, which was designing the NFC caps. I actually made a compliant mechanism to fit these in and designed some unique shapes to abstractly represent each of my videos. With only hours between me and the morning train to Birmingham, I was actually pleased. There was no time to double check the measurements, but surely by now, after so many tweaks and time spent with the design, all of this was just going to click in place. It was overnight printing time. Even though I stayed with the print for its most vulnerable moments, I still couldn't sleep very well. As soon as I woke up, I sprung into action. I checked the finished object. Finished, it was not. Disaster struck. A knot in the filament meant that the cuff only printed halfway. There was no time to do anything about this. It was a massive failure through and through. I arrived at the event a little embarrassed and disappointed. Everyone else seemed to have come prepared, and I had nothing on me. Then I had an idea. A last Hail Mary, if you'd like. Prusa had a stand there, and they had all of their printers going. So I just approached them and asked politely if I could commandeer one of their printers to get this job done. They actually happily welcomed the idea. As I babysat my model, I got to know a lot of you and got to know the Prusa people better. Nicola, Pavel, David. I genuinely hope we keep in touch. And then, after a few hours, I actually had it. I programmed the NFC chips quickly and assembled the whole cuff in one of the back rooms of the conference. Showtime. This is how it went. If I happen to bump into you on the show floor and you happen to be curious, I would ask you a few quick questions to understand what is it that you're most interested in. Are you more practical or artistic? Do you want to make things for your personal use or the environment around you? Are you more drawn towards mechanical things or organic? Things like that. Based on your answers, we'd arrive very quickly at a singular selection, and you'd be able to scan the corresponding NFC tag with your phone to get to the right video essay. Did it work every time? No. Some phones just really did not like the NFC tags I used. But when it did work, it was such a fun interaction and an excuse to learn more about each other. People seemed to really like the idea, and since I'm such a small channel, the video they matched with was almost always new and a surprise for them. And if you want to look at the statistics, here they are. I know, the numbers are not huge, but although useful, the numbers themselves are never truly the end goal. And since this was well received, I feel there is something here. I may build on this further, maybe for the next convention. I already have a couple of ideas on how to enhance it. What do you think? On my train back to London, I was thinking and couldn't quite believe what took place in the past couple of weeks, born out of just this silly idea. I know I kept the pace high for my videos, not to waste your time, but trust me, the pace behind the scenes on this project was far more disjointed. I really wanted to quit. In fact, I wrote and rewrote this. The original idea was around the arc reactor, whatever, to succeed, and I was going to release the video before the show. That obviously didn't work. And the modeling of the cuff was also out of my comfort zone. Was this whole thing worth it? Of course. I learned about so many things I was already curious about but never engaged with, like those iris mechanisms, or working with organic shapes in CAD, or configuring NFC tags, designing modest compliant mechanisms, and the hardest bit of it all, magnets are not always the solution. This whole journey gave me an excuse to create something new, but more importantly, it put me on a trajectory to intersect and connect with new people and form real connections. This is what it's all about at the end of the day. It was humbling and inspiring to find such great company in just the span of a few hours, and I look forward to continue with my small but genuine contributions to the community. So don't worry, with even more energy than before, we'll go back to more applicable product design from the next episode onwards. If you found this interesting or useful, or you're just curious about other projects, please subscribe, like, and comment. Every single one of you makes such a massive difference, genuinely. Thank you for being here with me for a few minutes. Hope you enjoyed this, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.